He has recently taken over as CII President. Mr. Memani, welcome to PTI Videos. For CII, if you see, this is a time of global turmoil in terms of economy. What would be the focus area in the current FY?
What the global scenario is. We are seeing massive uncertainty globally and almost a very big change in the global world order. So uncertainty levels are high. Um, Global trade is coming down. So we have, and also given the geopolitical situation, there is a lot of uncertainty. So you have one as that point. And in that world order, you're seeing India as a steady hand in a very fractured situation. So the Indian economic resilience is very high. So you have uncertain global order, but a very stable India, very resilient India, and clearly over the last many years, the fastest growing economy in the world, and that will continue going forward. So if you look at these two things, what world over we are seeing countries do is to say, how they can enter into agreements with countries that they trust. That is one. The second is we are also looking at countries trying to reform very aggressively to become more competitive. Third is to build very strong, resilient supply chains. So if they have dependencies on some key countries, how do they mitigate those dependencies? So therefore also trying to see if they can encourage manufacturing or trade partnerships through which they can overcome some of this. And finally, they are dealing a lot with AI and what's the impact of AI in some of the economies. So if you look at these four scenarios, what is happening globally, I think the Indian agenda is also not that different. So if we look at where we are seeing Indian government look at, I think the signing of FTAs, focusing on reforms, encouraging manufacturing, trying to see how we take next steps on AI. I think that's there. So our theme for this year is accelerating competitiveness. And we believe that if we focus on the pillars that will make Indian economy and businesses more competitive, that's what we really want to do. And that's what we are driving towards. And if you look at 3 or 4 main things that we are there in that, one is obviously reforms, and particularly those which relate to ease of doing business. That is one big area that CII wants to focus, because that will definitely accelerate competitiveness. And there is a lot of openness in the government to accept that. And this is also a massive global theme that's going through. The second is how do we create a better environment for manufacturing. Indian manufacturing to GDP ratio has been stagnant for a long time, between 12.5%, 13%. So we need to see, government has been working hard, making a lot of policy changes to try and see how they can change that. So we are planning to do the same and trying seeing how we do more labor intensive manufacturing, more advanced manufacturing, trying to see how we encourage MSMEs to become more competitive, and laws and rules enabling MSMEs to operate with greater freedom and flexibility. So that's the second pocket of sort of encouraging manufacturing. The third is AI, and how do we ensure AI is going to create a big change going forward? How do we encourage greater adoption of AI, and how does India use AI as their next competitive advantage and also becomes the global use case capital for AI? And then AI will also cause a change in the way and the pattern of employment. So how do we encourage more activity around livelihoods? So that is the other area that we really want to focus on. And in that, particularly in areas like tourism, where there is a big opportunity, I think India can create much greater economic value add, much greater employment through tourism. So that's the other area that we are focusing on. So I would say, and then obviously there is sustainability, in manufacturing. How do you make the factors of production more effective, whether it is labor, whether it's logistics, whether it's land, energy costs and others. So that's the broad encompassing theme for CII, which is how do we accelerate competitiveness to make Indian economy and Indian businesses more competitive.
When the whole world is in such an economic turmoil situation. There are unrest in Middle East, and there are other problems, trade war initiated by US. So it's a very difficult time to predict any kind of growth. But still, what would be the growth projection for Indian economy for this financial year?
So in India, we have looked at CII has done econometric model where we have looked at almost 34 high frequency indicators. These indicators relate to demand, to production, to monetary policy, to other supply parameters, and also looking at what the global uncertainties are and the various global uncertainty indexes. So once you look at all this, then we are predicting GDP growth of roughly between 6.4 to 6.7%. That's what CI has been looking at. I would say the downside risks are really if the global uncertainties or geopolitical issues accelerate even further and start impacting economy. I would say that probably would be, if I have to pick up one downside risk, I would really say it's more external than internal.
Sir, there is a tariff war, global tariff war started by US, putting trade restriction on all countries. So India is not exception. So what is the expectation? Because the government has also said that they are in advanced stage of first tranche of trade deal. But yesterday, Trade Minister said that they are not looking at any dates. So how do you see this scenario panning out?
So I think India has been signing FTAs after elaborate discussions over the last 2 years or so. Australia, Abu Dhabi, some other Middle Eastern countries, and post-Trump, some of the other FTAs where we are having long pending conversations like UK got signed, and we have progressed our discussions with EU, and I think that's also shaping up well, except for some non-tariff barriers and things like those. And then finally the US, which the discussions just started as soon as President Trump took over. And I must say that there's been significant progress that we've achieved in 6 months' time. The government has spent a lot of time in understanding what industries' needs are. As CII, we have represented various industries, large companies, mid-sized companies, small companies, explaining the issues, the challenges, and the opportunities for the FTA. And the government has been very patient in absorbing what the issues are and what the concerns are. So we have no doubt that the government has a full understanding, and as we understand this government, I mean, they will only move ahead if they feel confident and comfortable with the fact that this FTA is happening is in India's interest. So I completely agree with our Commerce Minister's comments that FTA is important. FTA should be done, but it can only be done if both sides feel that they have to benefit from that, and it should only be done if that principle is achieved. And there's no need to be under a tremendous time crunch and compromise on some of the key issues. Having said that, this is probably FTA that will get done in tranches. So I think if there is openness on both sides to do and create a win-win situation, it can be, because at least the first tranche we can go through. And any FTA with a country like US has a broader signal that goes out, that both countries are wanting to build a stronger strategic economic relationship. And once those bridges are built, I think the trade grows, there is greater economic growth on both sides. So Indian industry is keen that the FTA happens because they get protection from the 26% tariff, and also relatively in a better competitive position, or if not a worse competitive position as compared to some of the other countries who supply into the US. But only the industry is very clear that they want this only if this is in the interest of the country overall. There is no point in rushing into an FTA which has more questions and more challenges than before.
Recently, the rare earth metal supplies which has been restricted, or we can say halt by China to India. So that is impacting our economy. So what kind of impact you see, and what is the way out?
See, if the rare earth situation continues for some more time, then it will definitely have um, a strong negative impact on some industries, particularly around auto, EVs, and others. So I think that is a big challenge. Well, I don't think there are any easy answers to how it can be resolved. India will have to look at alternative sources. It's not easy to build alternative sources in the short term. So whatever is possible, I'm sure companies, individuals are trying to look at alternative sources from other countries like Japan or some of the others. I know some of the Japanese companies are in conversation with some Indian companies, but that's a short-term thing. In the medium term to long term, I think India needs to have a very clear policy on whether it's rare earth or other materials where the supply chain is very dependent on a particular country. I think we need to have an alternative policy, a very clear policy, a strong partnership between private sector, and typically these sectors have high risks associated with it, and India's competitiveness is not established. So you also need some kind of policy support, fiscal support that is required to ensure that once these companies are set up with the right support and they achieve competitiveness after a few years, then you can pull out some of these supports, and then the sector grows on its own.
So you are saying that some incentive, some PLI scheme should become
Material to material, yeah. Product to product, if it's required. Even technology partnerships, I think that will be required, like we've done in semiconductors.
Okay. So, sir, as you said, for supporting manufacturing, labor reform is also one area where some things are some agendas are lacking. So, how do you see this panning out in the country, and how do you see the government intervention?
So, government did announce labor reforms. The model code was also created, but for whatever reason, it didn't go through. It was not presented in the parliament. And what we are seeing instead now, that some states have picked up this and are trying to implement that either in the state or in some of the industrial parks or some of the sector specific parks, to try and see how you can ensure that they become, from a business standpoint, they become more attractive, they become more competitive, to attract industries to be coming through this. So I think a lot of the action on labor codes will happen in states, will happen in some sectors, particularly those which are labor intensive.
Sir, as if we talk about next generation reforms, so what could be those reforms which can help India to plug the early hanging fruits for expansion of manufacturing and creating employment?
Yeah. I think the government has done some great job. I think the manufacturing mission has been created. A lot of this requires coordination between center, state, various ministries of center. So the manufacturing mission is there. So I think that if we can ensure that gets implemented, it's more action oriented, and within that, if we can have some advanced manufacturing subcomponent to it, I think that'll be very good. PLI schemes have been introduced. A significant allocation of more than 3 lakh crores have been made to PLI, or whatever name you give to some of those schemes. Out of that, roughly 30 to 40,000 crores has been utilized. So some PLI schemes have been very successful, like electronics, like semiconductor, like defense. Some are moderate and some have not been that successful. So we should relook at the schemes that have not been successful and try and see how they can be modified. In some newer areas, we may need some more PLI schemes that needs to be implemented. The third, I would say, is to reduce if we can find ways to reduce the factor costs. So whether it is land, a lot of reforms required to be done in land, greater availability of land, better usage of land, lesser challenges in transferring the usage of the land, trying to see how more private sector land can be made more available, setting up of industrial parks and others. So I think to encourage manufacturing, land reforms, logistics costs, there's a lot of work that's happened in reducing logistics costs. I think some more work needs to be done there. Likewise, in energy costs, India has become more competitive, but making the transmission more robust, accelerating that. In distribution, trying to see if we can privatize the distribution at state level, so that that's not that is not the cost at the distribution cost, the TNC losses can be reduced, and also cross subsidies are reduced. So factor cost of production and how that can be reduced, and also then the whole thing around speeding the approval process, whether it's environmental clearances, NOCs, various approvals, both horizontal and vertical, if they can be approved. And I would say finally, skilling and the strong partnership between industry and government on skilling is very important if we need to accelerate that. Interest of time, I won't get into the details of that, but some of the schemes that government has put, like ELI, R&D, which have just been announced, also the internship scheme, are very good pillars to support acceleration of manufacturing activities, acceleration of R&D, which is very critical for the success of manufacturing activities.
Despite Skill India and other initiatives, there is still a number of gaps where the industry, due to lack of skilled manpower, industry is postponing its plan to expansion. So how industry and government can work in this area to bridge this gap or bring a something solution, better skilling solution for the Indian industry?
I think first thing we need to do is to have a very holistic demand assessment. What are the skills? What are they required? Which geography are they required? For example, you may need more semiconductor talent in Gujarat. You may need more EV talent in Tamil Nadu. You may need more mining talent in Odisha. So depending on what skill is required where, and then partnering with industry, partnering with other stakeholders to say that for those skills, the infrastructure can be developed, the pedagogy can be developed, so that you can implement some of those skills to people who are closer to the place where the manufacturing or where the business activity is being carried, rather than someone getting developed here, going there. I think their entire mobility is not that easy anymore. So that's the second thing. Once you're granting a PLI scheme or any other new scheme, like on semiconductors or on defense, then ensuring that there is some investment that's also made on skilling for those, whether it's made by private sector, whether it's part of the allocation, whether it's made in partnership. I think that is very important. And finally, I think a strong partnership between private sector and government to build the skilling infrastructure, including allowing usage of CSR funds, will be very, very critical. So I would say that skilling is a very detailed, very elaborate piece, but very important for success of manufacturing, and also very important to ensure that the India's bottommost pyramid, the bottom 30%, get empowered, get strengthened to move things forward.
You have talked initially that this year the focus is making Indian manufacturing more competitive. So becoming competitive, globally competitive, ESG norms are also very important. So how do you see, what are the steps CII is taking to for creating or from adapting ESG norms in the industry, not for the big companies, also for the MSMEs?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I think CII has built some excellent COEs and committees. So our Green Council, we have a committee on sustainability. So we have got some very good processes by which and also programs through which we are ensuring that The MSMEs are very clear on what the net zero goals are, how they can be achieved, and how some of these schemes can be, how some of these processes can be fully institutionalized. So I think CII, through its centers of excellence, through the other centers that have been created, is really working very closely with its members, particularly MSMEs, to ensure that the net zero journey or journey towards sustainability, to become more competitive globally, especially given CBAM and other things. I think that's where CII has been very actively involved.
Mr. Memani, thank you very much for talking to PTI videos and giving your insight and industry as CII insight on a state of Indian economy.